Hey guys, Slaughter here, returning after my very long, or at least that's how it felt to me, one-day break. And of course, today I'm bringing you guys another episode of Star Wars Starship Versus, the series where I take two spaceships in the Star Wars universe, put them head-to-head, and try to predict which one would come out on top, or at least that's what I typically do, because on very special days like today, we have cross-universe matchups. For those of you expecting a fundraising update right now, I'm actually going to do that after the matchup on today's video, but if you do want to support the channel, you can follow me on Twitter, support my GoFundMe page where I'm trying to upgrade my hardware, or also join the Discord. Anyway, today is one of the days that I look forward to because we are taking two of my favorite universes, Halo and Star Wars, and including them in one video. I will say, probably the most requested matchup on this channel, and I literally get this one on a daily basis, is the Covenant Supercarrier versus the Executor, or some other large Star Wars ship. I've explained this a few times now, but I'll say it again. I'm not doing this matchup until the new Halo reference book comes out, because right now we literally have no stats about the Covenant Supercarrier other than its length. I mean, we don't know how many weapons it has, what kind of Forerunner upgrades it has, nothing. And that's actually the case for most ships within the Halo universe, and certainly almost all of the Covenant ships. But as I mentioned, the new book Halo Warfleet comes out on September 5th, so hopefully that will help with the situation. Also, as a bit of a fun little fact, this book is being illustrated by the same guy who did the Star Wars Incredible Cross Sections book, so I really do think we're in for a treat. Anyway, back to today's matchup, and we're actually looking at a ship that surprisingly does have some specifications, and this matchup was suggested by TRXP Chimper, who has asked me to put the Covenant Corvette against the Acclamator Class Assault Ship. And I've interpreted this to mean specifically the SDV Class Heavy Corvette, like the kind you see in Halo Reach, and the Acclamator 1 Class Assault Ship. So that's what we're going to be doing today, taking these two ships, putting them head-to-head in three different categories: firepower, defensive capabilities, and fighter support. We're going to try to predict which one would come out on top. And we're not just looking at who gets the most categories, we're going to take a holistic method and look at everything, including ship intangibles. As for my other rules, we're also assuming that these two ships are piloted by equally skilled persons, so just pretend that instead of having the Covenant go against the Republic, we're just having, clones piloting both ships. Also, we're taking the two as they ordinarily existed, no special modifications, no unique ships, just a standard SDV and a standard Acclamator. Alright, so let's start with weaponry, and it's always kind of difficult when you compare two different universes, especially where Halo is a bit more grounded in science, while Star Wars is pretty much completely fantasy. But I will try, and let's first look at the SDV. Being that it was a small Corvette rather than a large capital ship, the SDV did not have the Covenant's dreaded energy projector weapon, and the Republic should probably be grateful that it doesn't, because these weapons are able to glass planets, and they can snipe ships from a distance. Instead, the ship has two main weapons, one for capital ships and one to fight off starfighters. The first, larger sized weapon is the plasma turrets. These turrets fire guided, long-range torpedoes, which are devastating, at least against UNSC ships. I will say though, these weapons are known to be effective, but against unshielded human ships during the Human Covenant War. And, as noted by the late but great Fleet Admiral Preston Cole, when these missiles encounter magnetic fields, they seem to be rendered harmless. We know that magnetic fields are used in the Star Wars universe to keep airlocks closed. Whether they're used as part of an actual ship's shields are kind of unclear to me, but it's something to keep in mind. Besides, I'm not really convinced that even if the ship's shields did have magnetic fields within it, that they would be strong enough to actually render the weapons useless, but it is something to keep in mind. So the SDV has 6 of these large anti-capital ship weapons. It also has 12 pulse laser turrets. These are more similar to things we see commonly in the Star Wars universe, and kind of like laser cannons, they serve primarily in a point defense role, but can also be used offensively against other ships. They appear to be quite fast, but obviously aren't as devastating as the larger weapons. And although they are powerful enough to do serious damage to a small, unshielded human ship like a frigate, the Covenant were not taking out larger ships with single shots with this. However, I do think it is worth mentioning that in the Halo Forward Unto Dawn series, we see a plasma laser turret take down the space elevator at Corbula Academy in one shot. Let's now go to Star Wars and take a look at the Acclamator Class Assault Ship. The Acclamator had 12 quad turbo laser cannons and 24 point defense cannons. In the Star Wars universe, quad turbo lasers are pretty serious business. The Star Wars Attack of the Clones Incredible Cross Sections is very well known for listing the power of the Acclamator's quad turbo lasers to be around 200 gigatons. Accepting this output as fact would probably put a single round from the quad turbo laser cannon an order of magnitude higher in power than probably the entire output of the SDV Corvette. However, to be honest, I think 200 gigatons per shot is completely ridiculous, and although it does come from a legend source, so I could use it if I wanted to, I'm gonna disregard it. Still, these weapons are powerful, and the Attack of the Clones' incredible cross-section also says that groups of these ships were able to perform base Delta Zeros. This is basically the Star Wars version of glassing a planet. However, the ships will typically use less specialized weapons and will kind of just point at the planet and shoot. Unlike the actual figures used, that does seem more reasonable to me, so I will keep that in mind. Along with the big guns, as I mentioned, are 24-point defense laser cannons. I think these should be pretty effective against the Covenant, as I don't really think a Banshee is really that much faster than the ships that the Republic would be typically going up against. I'm just going to call this category a tie, and we'll look more at weaponry as we get to intangibles and the final matchup. Now let's move on to defensive capabilities, and this is where I start to worry about one of these two ships. The SDV Corvette, surprisingly, does not have a shield, and I'm going to guess at almost a kilometer long, it was probably the largest Covenant warship not to actually be shielded. Probably the most disappointing moment for the SDV and for fans of the Corvette in general comes in Halo Reach. During the mission Exodus, a Covenant Corvette has taken position over the city of New Alexandria and is shooting down transport ships that are attempting to evacuate civilians. This Corvette, which is in an offensive posture and doesn't appear to be damaged in any sort of way, is badly damaged to the point where its weapons seem to be offline and it actually has to retreat by a single salvo from a surface-to-air missile launcher. And I mean, this isn't some huge cannon. The thing's like 20 feet tall, probably the size of a single turbo laser battery on the Acclamator. That alone does not make me feel good about the ship's chances in this matchup. The Acclamator, on the other hand, at 750 meters long, was durable for its size. It had a dedicated shield and, despite being primarily a transport ship, could actually fight on the front lines of battle. Funny enough, the Incredible Cross-Sections book that I mentioned earlier specifically says that because of the ship's ultra-dispersive neutronium, it can actually stand up to things like fusion rockets without much damage. So this section goes to the Acclamator, and I think the feats here, and I guess I mean that in a negative way, of the SDV are pretty serious, but we'll talk about that more later. Finally, we have fighter support, and the Acclamator did not typically carry fighter squadrons. Despite being a transport ship, it did not field fighters during space battles. We don't know exactly how many ships the SDV would have carried, how many Banshees, how many Phantoms. I think the best guess we have is based on what we see in Halo Reach while we're actually on the ship, but that of course probably underrepresents the ship's complement. However, I will say the use of fighters in the Halo universe is not quite as prevalent as in Star Wars. For this battle, I'll give the ship 40 Banshees and 20 Phantoms. Alright, let's now skip intangibles and go straight to the matchup. And before I do, I just want to mention one thing that I've been thinking about while recording. Covenant naming convention is typically such that if the vehicle has an S in it, it's usually assumed that it has an energy projector. So I am sort of rethinking what I said earlier about the ship not having a dedicated energy projector, and that would affect the battle. Halo Waypoint says that the S stands for salvation, which, and I quote, denotes that this is a dedicated warship capable of cleansing the enemies of the Covenant with holy fire. Now, what this exactly means is not quite clear to me. I'm not sure it guarantees that it has an energy projector. More to me seems that it can be used to bombard enemy locations. There are also some moments in Halo Reach that make me question the presence of an energy projector. The first is in the second mission where one is attacking Sword Base. You see that the ship comes really close and really close enough to start glassing, but it doesn't. And I mean, it's the same at New Alexandria. The ship parks right above the city, and instead of attacking it, it just shoots transports down. And later, once the Covenant do attack the city, they use CCS cruisers instead of the various Corvettes that were already there. But on the other hand, it does have it in its name, and it does have some sort of thing on the bottom of the ship, which looks like it might be an energy projector. So I have to count it in this matchup. So disregard what I said earlier, and I think I might give the Covenant a little bit of a weapon bonus. The question is, does that change anything? Will the Acclamator lose out when it would have won before, or is it still going to come out on top? Or alternatively, was it screwed from the start and is now in even more trouble? Well, no, and I don't think either of those second two things are true. There's no denying that the weapons of the Covenant are very deadly. The glassing cannon especially can be used to tear UNSC ships apart from a pretty far distance. All of that being said, despite how close it appears that ships sometimes fight in the Star Wars universe, they are also capable at fighting at a distance. And although Covenant weaponry can tear apart unshielded human ships, I don't think it's going to do the same to a bulky Republic transport. The ship has shields and probably stronger armor, or at least as strong armor as most human ships. Now, if the SDV were durable itself, this would be an interesting matchup, but in my mind, it's really not. We saw what that single volley of rockets did to the ship in Halo Reach. The Acclamator has 12 quad turbo laser cannons. I'm going to guess that a single one of these probably outputs much more power than that missile launcher, if not much more, at least as much. So it's got 12 of those which it can fire all at once towards the enemy ship. And even if you ignore the kind of crazy, incredible cross-sections numbers like I've done in this video, that's a lot of firepower. Keep in mind too that the Acclamator has that classic wedge shape, so it can point most of its weapons towards the enemy, and given that it does have those 24-point defense laser cannons, it can focus them all on the enemy capital ship. Which kind of brings me to the other question. Well, what about the fighters? Well, the answer to that I think is pretty simple. Banshees seem to be pretty well armed, but they're terribly slow and they're unshielded. The Acclamator assault ship has weaponry that is typically used to take down droid starfighters, which are the exact opposite. They're not as well armed, but they're very nimble. I think they should be able to take out the Banshees from a distance before they really get close enough to do any damage. They might have a bit more trouble with the Phantoms, but again, I think they're pretty small, and even those ships' shields won't save them. The only way that the Corvette wins this battle is if its energy projector is strong enough to pierce the shields of the Acclamator. And if it can, it will have to take out the bridge, which, admittedly, is overexposed. When it comes down to it, I'm not convinced that it will be able to do so quickly enough to stop the Acclamator's assault with its weapons. I mean, I'm not even 100% sure that the ship does have an energy projector. I mean, based on its name and its design, it probably does, but I would also guess that the weapon probably comes in various degrees of effectiveness and power, and this smaller ship probably has a much less powerful cleansing laser than, say, a CCS class. In the end, I just don't think there's much the Covenant can do, given that the ship does not have a shield. The Acclamator is going to take it down in probably one volley, or at least severely disable it, like what happened on Reach. So I give this one to the Acclamator, and I say it wins 9 times out of 10. Again, the only chance the Covenant has is if I'm severely underestimating how effective their weaponry will be against the ship. Anyways guys, that is all for this battle. Take a second right now and vote in the upper right corner. Did I get this one right? Would the Covenant actually win, or is it too close to tell? Let me know by voting, and also, of course, let me know what you think down in the comments. Also, if you haven't already, which I'm sure most of you have, make sure to let me know which battle you'd like to see next, keeping in mind what I said earlier about Covenant ships generally. So now it's time for the brief fundraising update, and guys, if you haven't already, take a chance to say thank you to everyone who's donated, because they are helping to make this channel greater and better, and hopefully the sound will at least come out a bit nicer. Since last time, we've had 2 anonymous donors. Thank you very much, anonymous people. You have a special place in my heart. Thank you also to the man with the most common name in North America, John Smith. Thank you very much, John. Also, thank you, Kenneth Cates. I've never met a Kenneth I didn't like. Thanks, Kenneth. And of course, thank you to my most recent donor, Austin Molis. I hope I said your last name right, Austin. Thank you very much. If you want to donate, go to gofundme.com/Eckhart'sLadder or click the link that I'm sure I'll put down in the comments in the description, because let's be honest, I'm a greedy money grubber. I'm just kidding, and I really do appreciate all the support you guys have given me, not only on this GoFundMe page, but also on my channel. These past, I guess, 4 or 5 months, that's really when I started, have been a whole lot of fun, and it's all thanks to you guys. If you want more, make sure to subscribe to my second channel, X2, which I believe just passed 1,000 subscribers. Also, follow me on Twitter, join the Discord again, all the links down in the description. But hey, you never have to do that stuff. You can just come here to watch daily Star Wars videos with me, and I really appreciate it once again. Thank you so much, guys. As always, may the Force be with you.